So done with turn number 6. So we're heading into July 1939 here coming up. And still war hasn't really broken out. No conflict going on other than still in Spain and China as part of the civil wars going on in those two countries. Everybody else still just kind of maneuvering and gearing up. So in Europe, with Germany, the last couple turns, they put most of their units that they bought here on the border with France. And the French obviously responding in turn. They've got quite a large stack of infantry and a few artillery in Alsace-Lorraine. So Germany's got a couple of options. I think war will break out here on turn 7. If not, then definitely turn 8. So we're getting close. So Germany's got a couple of options when it comes to France. They can either go through the Maginot Line and Alsace-Lorraine, or they can drop their paratroopers and bring all their air units to Paris, try to take out Paris itself, force the French to surrender. The problem is the French, seeing the German paratroopers on the board, went ahead and Paris isn't that strongly defended. It's got a tactical bomber, a fighter, and about 6 infantry. So at this point, barring Germany buying any more paratroopers prior to declaring war on France, they've got just 2 paratroopers right now they can drop there. Now they do have some decent air assets. They got a couple of Stukas, 3 fighters, and a medium bomber, but I'm not sure that's going to be enough to take Paris. And even if it did, they'd probably have to sacrifice almost all of the air units in order to secure Paris with at least one of the Fallschirmjäger. So that's not a great option right now. The other option, obviously, is to go through Alsace-Lorraine. But because of the Maginot Line, the Germans suffer double casualties. The French infantry, I believe, are +2 on defense, and the Maginot Line also provides with 2 first strike artillery on turn 1. So that's a lot to get through if you're Germany. And right now, Germany's got about 6 infantry, 6 artillery, 6 medium armor. Plus, they would obviously bring their entire air force into that battle as well. They do have a couple of light armor that would be able to reach down here from West Germany and go in. But that's not a lot of units against the French defense. And then you also got to think that even if they take Alsace-Lorraine, in order to make France surrender on this turn, and you definitely do not want France surviving once you attack them. You want to take them out in the turn that you actually declare war on France. The Germans then also have to have enough units left over to then go into Paris as well. So I'm not sure which way Germany's going to go right now. They can hold off attacking for another turn, so they'd have one more turn worth of units. But the Spanish Civil War is still going on, so that's a little bit of a drain on the German IPPs. And they only have $24 to spend a turn as it is, so it's not like they're going to be able to throw a massive amount of units on the board this turn. They could go maybe with spending 20 IPPs, getting 5 more artillery, putting them down in Bavaria. That'd be 5 more first strike units, as well as helping to increase the attack on the infantry that are going in. So they might do that. So I'm not sure Germany can take either Paris or Alsace-Lorraine. And then still, if they go for Alsace-Lorraine, still then successfully take Paris. So I think Germany's going to hold off one more turn here in Europe and go for turn number 8 when they attack, I believe. So that was about it for Germany. France, we already kind of covered them. They're just buying infantry every turn. They get $9 a turn, so they're buying 3 infantry right now and doing a combination of defending Alsace-Lorraine and Paris. Russia is also pretty quiet. Again, they can't declare war on neutral countries until the July 39 turn. So they're just kind of massed along the border with several different nations. Once they are able to declare war on a neutral, they're going to go into Mongolia in the Far East. They're going to go into Iran in the Middle East. And then they're going to come up here and launch an attack from Karelia into Finland. So Russia's got a few attacks in mind right now. And the defenses of those countries, with the exception of maybe Finland, are all obviously pretty weak. A single infantry or militia or a cavalry pretty much in every territory they plan on going into. So unless the die rolls are completely horrible against Russia, they should be successful there. As far as the British, they finished off a light carrier and a light cruiser, and that's off of London right now. And then they're building up significant assets in Africa so that either dissuade Italy from joining the conflict altogether, or at least be in a position, if Italy does throw its hat in the ring, to push back on the Italians right away. They've got right now 3 minor factories in Africa, one in eastern Egypt in Cairo, and then 2 down in South Africa itself. They've also upgraded several militia over the last few turns in Africa. They've put a couple of fighters built in Africa. So UK could be in a position to take Abyssinia. There's 2 infantry and a cavalry left, Italian units in Abyssinia. And the air units that the British have, along with a couple of infantry they've upgraded from militia, can reach. So that could be something the UK does if Italy does enter the war. And then again, they also have their fleets positioned in the Med to go after the Italian Navy should that conflict come about. As far as Italy, they continue to send units to the Spanish, to the nationalists, Franco's forces. So just like with Germany, that's a little bit of a drain on their economy. They sent their transports back to Rome and then put down 3 infantry themselves. So on this turn here, again, assuming Italy doesn't enter into the conflict, if one comes about, they're going to probably move 4 more infantry from northern Italy over to Cyrenaica down here in Africa. So they'll have quite a bit of ground units in Africa at that point. As far as the Spanish Civil War goes, the nationalists had a little bit of a comeback. So they went into this territory here, bordering with southern France. They went into there, and at the cost of losing 1 infantry, they took out 2 artillery and an infantry. And then actually on their recruitment roll, they rolled a 1. They needed a 1 or a 2, so they got a free infantry. So basically, they got that infantry right back. And then and then the Italians sent an infantry over. So right now the balance of power has shifted back into the nationalists' favor. The Republicans are down to just Madrid. They do have a couple other territories that don't have any units in it, but as far as units in Spain, they're down to 2 infantry, 3 artillery, going up against 3 infantry and 4 artillery. Plus Germany, again, will send probably an infantry, maybe an artillery down there this turn. So the nationalists might go ahead and try to take out Madrid. If they were to take Madrid, that wouldn't end the war because there still are some territories under Republican control, but with no units in them and Russia only being able to send 1 unit a turn over, that would probably, for all intents and purposes, end the Spanish Civil War in the nationalist favor. The U.S. didn't do a lot. I took the advice of some comments, and the U.S. went ahead and upgraded a factory in San Francisco from a medium to a major, and that pretty much took up most of the U.S.'s income. Everything else, they're pretty much, most of what you see on the board here on the East Coast of the United States is what they start the game with. There's not been a lot of movement even with U.S. forces on this side of the map. Over in the Pacific, Japan's moved up a little bit. So they also probably are not going to attack this turn. They're able to activate Siam on this turn, so they're going to go ahead and do that, and then it'll probably be the following turn that they launch their big attacks. So they've moved up these two fleets a little bit closer to Siam, positioning themselves certainly within striking distance of Calcutta and the Far East Command. They've left one infantry on each of these three destroyers behind here, so they're going to take, when they do attack, they're going to land in each of these islands in Dutch New Guinea, and the Solomons, so they'll take all three of those undefended islands. They've got this fleet down here ready to maybe go into Borneo, Java, Sumatra. But actually, just to ensure that Calcutta falls, they're probably going to combine both of these fleets and go after Calcutta at once and then save the Money Islands for the subsequent turn, just because the priority is going to be Calcutta. So I can see Siam being activated this turn, this fleet over here moving a couple of more sea zones, maybe down to over here in sea zone 121. And then that way, on turn number 8, both fleets are in position to land in India. Now, they would have to fight through the Far East Command's navy they got here off of Calcutta, but that's not going to really be an issue, especially if the Japanese combine both of these fleets. There's no way they'll lose that battle, and then that'll leave them wide open to land, preferably in Calcutta. Now, the Far East Command has dropped a couple infantry per turn here, so that's a stack of about 8 infantry. But with everything Japan can bring over, it's going to be a total of about probably 14 infantry, cavalry, a couple of motorized infantry, along with a bunch of planes. It looks like right now it's going to be about 3 fighters and 3 tacticals. So I don't think that Japan would lose if they landed in Calcutta. If they don't want to do that, because none of the infantry units they are landing are Marines, so they're going to suffer double casualties. So if they don't want to do that, they could instead maybe land here in South India, which is defended with a single infantry. So they would take that with hardly suffering any casualties whatsoever. And then on the next turn, they could go into Calcutta with all the ground units not suffering double casualties, because then it wouldn't be an amphibious landing. It would be land-to-land combat there. So a couple of options for the Japanese, but they're definitely going heavy for the Far East Command. And that, again, kind of goes back to experience in my first game where Japan never finished off any of their opponents completely here in the Pacific. And by the end of the game, they were getting ganged up there, a 5-on-1 situation. So they're definitely looking to avoid that this game. And until the U.S. enters the conflict, they've identified as the Far East Command as their most dangerous opponent. So they're going heavy after Calcutta. Anzac actually also has to worry. Japan could peel off and even go after Sydney. So Anzac has went ahead and built some infantry. Sydney's now defended with an artillery, a motorized, and 3 infantry. So nothing spectacular, but probably between that and Calcutta's defenses, it's probably too much for Japan to try to go after each one on the same turn. So looks like Anzac will survive a little bit longer because Japanese focus is now pretty much exclusively on Calcutta. The U.S., again, not a lot going on. They did upgrade that one factory in San Francisco to a major. That was about it for the U.S. And then in the Chinese Civil War, it's been going back and forth. It looked like for a couple turns the CCP had the upper hand, then the KMT, and now it looks like it's back swinging pretty heavily in the CCP favor. They, again, this turn got another warlord to join them. So the KMT does have $6 worth of territory, and this northern territory here, this northern territory up here outside of Nanking does have about 6 infantry and a couple of cavalry. But other than that, Szechuan's got a single infantry, and then just 2 more infantry down here in the southern KMT territory. So I can definitely see at least these two territories here for the KMT falling this turn and kind of pushing the KMT back to the coast. And with all the territories, the warlords that have joined the CCP, it's almost a definite that every turn they're going to get a warlord to join them. There's 3 warlords left on the board here. So Xinjiang, Tibet, and then down here outside of Hong Kong, they'll go for this one next. That's got the most units, and it's also the closest to KMT territory. So with the fact that warlords are pretty much a guarantee to join the CCP each turn, I really don't see the KMT being able to survive much longer, much like in turn 1. And again, it's all about the roles for the CCP. They get warlord influence roles and recruitment roles each turn. With the recruitment role, they can get either 1 infantry or 2 militia. So they get a couple of different ways each turn to increase their forces, increase their income. And again, if the roles aren't happening for the CCP, then the KMT can kind of gain control. But if not, just turn after turn, it gets more likely that the CCP is going to add a warlord or units to their inventory and just be able to roll right over the KMT. That happened in game number 1, and it's happening again here in game number 2. So that's it for 6 turns. We'll see. I, again, don't think that July 39 here is going to produce any major conflict. I think the Germans are going to hold off one more turn, and the Japanese are definitely going to hold off one more turn because they're going to activate Siam here in July 39. So we might have one more turn of relative peace before things break out from Europe to the Pacific.